is speed, right? How fast 5G is. And one of the very important pieces of that is network slicing in order to be able to get, network slicing in millimeter wave specifically, in order to get that kind of throughput.
Cool, so those are your key three terms. So now we'll jump a little bit to the reality of what's going on. And I like to say don't believe the hype, but I think more realistic is what's reality, what's really here. So the major carriers, you also saw the commercials. Chris is going to give us a rundown of each of the major carriers and just where they are today. This isn't where they're going, folks, but where they actually are today with 5G. So let's start with Verizon.
Sure. So basically every carrier has some sort of brand name for their platform. So they've branded theirs as ultra wideband. It's available in 14 NFL stadiums and was used in the Super Bowl, and it's available in 28 cities, including New York. Now, when we say it's available, we might be talking less than one city block.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a millimeter wave. That's the system that Verizon has chosen. So, you know, they're really looking for that throughput capacity. But, you know, the distance that it can travel, if you start zooming in on those maps, the 5G coverage area in New York might be, you know, smaller than Times Square.
Now, I want to jump in a little bit to something we'll handle later, but, you know, it's funny. Why did we say 14 NFL stadiums and use the Super Bowl? Well, with these millimeter waves, the first place they're going to be the most useful for us as consumers is in a stadium or a venue where we can get, like, added content to what we're watching, like special instant replays or at some point, you know, augmented reality and stuff like that. So talk a little bit about where you see that roll out in the stadiums and venues. I mean, we're starting with stadiums. Someday will it be in like concert halls, like would Madison Square Garden get it?
Yeah, I expect we'll see it in virtually every area, where every venue where you have lots of people. So one of the very important things about 5G is all of that extra network capacity. And so what's the biggest problem when you're standing in a stadium? You're trying to post a picture to Facebook or trying to watch a video.
Spin.
You're standing with 100,000 people, you get no bandwidth.
Yep.
So, you know, 5G being able to get more bandwidth into a very concentrated area is a great solution for these very densely packed.
And that's two-way. Also, sometimes I'm at a game, but I want to be watching another game because my device will let me do it, and it stalls all the time. But very cool. AT&T, they're calling it 5G and 5G Plus.
Yeah, so they've gone with the short name on this one. It's available in 36 different cities so far. Once again, though, when we start talking about it's available in these cities, like, you know, it's in Dallas, but it only makes up a very, very tiny portion of the city in terms of where it's actually available.
Now, that's not really a big deal right now today because there's maybe a handful of phones that have 5G anyway, but it's more in the rollout, testing, proof of concept phase in the real world as opposed to the laboratory.
Exactly. And so, you know, in terms of devices that are available today, it's basically the Galaxy S series, the Galaxy S10 5G and the Galaxy S20s that are just getting launched now are the primary devices that are available.
And I'll be honest with you, I opted to get the non-5G, save a couple $100 because I knew from you how long it was going to take to matter, and I'll be on my 10 or 11 by then. Okay, T-Mobile. Now, they're doing something sub-6 5G as opposed to explain what their strategy is.
Yeah, so one of the things that T-Mobile had was a very large amount of spectrum in the 600 megahertz band. For those of you who have worked with wireless microphones, you might remember that they reclaimed a whole bunch of spectrum in the 600 megahertz
Can we bring
band.
this up full screen? I just want them to see how they have so much pink and it looks like they have so much more coverage.
And so the 600 megahertz band, what's great about it is that it travels really, really, really far. So you can have one tower and cover a very substantial amount of rural area because the waves are that much more powerful and are able to travel farther. So they've gone ahead and deployed this. Now, the flip side of that is there's not as much capacity on the spectrum.
Great in rural areas, not great in a big city.
Right, exactly. You know, so at the end of the day, we're probably going to see some mix of sub-6 and millimeter wave deployments across the entire country so that you have this nice blend of speed and throughput as well as the ability to actually get into buildings through glass. And
sub-6 is an improvement from where we are with LTE. It's just not that everything you're hearing about 5G. 5G is really all those components combined. And then Sprint is calling it, of course, they have to call it something else, True Mobile 5G.
Yeah, True Mobile 5G, and certainly something very closely that everyone's watching is the merger between Sprint and T-Mobile. That might have played into Sprint not being quite as aggressive with 5G as the other carriers have been. With the potential merger in place. So, they're doing some sub-6, some millimeter wave. It's not quite as rolled out as the other networks are at the moment.
Cool. Okay, now let's go to, and this one, I want to, It's not that 5G isn't going to be great. I don't want people to think that it's not, but I want people to understand that it's not really here. So that's why we're saying don't believe the hype. When you see the commercials, they make it think like 5G is going to instantly change your life. It will in about 5 years. So let's talk about what's really happening today, 2020. So here's our checklist. I'm going to read the question, and you'll give the long answer as opposed to the short answer, okay? Does anyone have a complete 5G NR network and 5G core?
No, they don't. NR here, by the way, is an abbreviation for what we call new radio.
Okay.
So whenever we talk about 5G NR, we're usually talking about millimeter wave. Because 5G and 4G are two different in-air protocols, that's one of the reasons that we start talking about needing a new radio, especially to cover those new frequency bands.
And what's a 5G core?
So there's two parts of any cellular network. You've got the core network and you've got the edge network. And the edge network is what your cell phone is connected to right now. Then beyond that, there's all of the network connectivity that actually connects all of the towers together and then connects the towers back to the internet ultimately. And so that's the core. And so they're working on basically the edge network right now, deploying 5G on the towers and getting that out to cell phones. But it's still actually a 4G core today. And that's a very important point because we won't see all of the benefits of the 5G networks until that core
The weakest link will be the choke point. Until everything's the core and the edge and the wavelength, then we're going to get it.
And you might ask, well, why aren't you starting with the core first and then building the edge? It's because there's so much more work to do on the edge than there is the core in this case.
And is anyone offering a commercial product around network slicing?
No, not today. It's I'm sure it'll come, and that's also due in large part to some of the basically what's available in the market for devices today, both handheld devices as well as modems that you might be able to put into a device, as well as what's available on the tower, and that 5G core is also very important to the benefit of network slicing.
Cool. Now the next one is, does anyone have a nationwide MMW network? But I'm going to cheat on that one. I'm going to scale it back. Does anyone even have a citywide or a townwide MMW network?
No, not even close. I mean, we start talking about you might have a couple of blocks available within some of these cities. I read a lot of blogs online, and one of them they did a test off one little microcell tower on a lamppost in Minneapolis, and they were getting a gigabit a second on the download, and they walked 50 feet, and the signal dropped off. So it's very, very concentrated at the moment.
But this next one, does anyone have a nationwide sub-6 5G network? We're getting closer there.
Yeah, so T-Mobile is very, very close to that kind of deployment in terms of sub-6, specifically in that 600 megahertz band. It does travel farther, so they don't need to put it on quite as many towers. And in many cases, the base stations at the bottom of the tower and the antennas that are actually on the tower already supported that frequency band. And so it's much easier for them to roll this out and really get a nice big marketing push, as well as the benefit of having a very large 5G network.
So let's go over the expected, what we're going to see over the course of this year in 5G.
Sure. So, we're going to see an increase in existing tech rolling out, right? I mean, we're starting to see more consumer devices become available. The Galaxy S20 line that was just announced this month, is going to be available in March. And we'll start to see maybe the launch of network slicing in some cases. There's also going to be a few products specifically around private 5G or business use cases. One thing I want to note here is one of the big things about 5G is what we also call IoT, the Internet of Things. Right. This is where you would go to the store and you buy your coffee maker, and that'll have a 5G modem in it. And you'll buy your refrigerator, and that'll have a 5G modem in it. And your vacuum cleaner will have a 5G modem in it. And it'll allow, and your cars will have 5G modems. And now we've built this whole world of connected things. It's critical for those plans to have 5G in place.
Yeah, when I talk to people about 5G, I tell them, the 5G is a communications technology, but really you're never going to see the kind of future of autonomous vehicles we joke about till this 5G really gets in place, because you need that speed of the response time, no lag and latency, but also the ability to have, the vehicles have to be able to talk to themselves and a central cell tower and all this other stuff. So autonomous vehicles is probably going to put a lot of push towards the end of the curve as it rolls out more. But for now, it's cell phones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when we start talking about things like autonomous vehicles, it's not necessarily just vehicles driving themselves, which is a wonderful goal to have. It's also things like safety and the ability to make cars aware of other cars, so that while the car may not be driving itself, it's now part of a larger network.
It's protecting me.
Right,
It knows that I should have broken if I fell asleep or.
And the other drivers too.
Right.
Right.
Cool. So there's no true 5G network today, but it's coming, folks. So let's talk about what are we going to see 2 to 3 years down the road, started over the 2022-23 period.
Yeah, so one of the big important things here is that as you mentioned earlier, we have to migrate technology off in order to bring new technology on. So today, what we call the CDMA network, in the case of Verizon, is the 3G network. Verizon is going to have to sunset that network in order to put 5G capable gear into that spectrum. Because as soon as that spectrum becomes available, now you can move up. Now, in order to do that, you have to move everything off the 3G network and into the 4G network. So there's a process that's going to have to happen.
So a little tech note for those of you non-technological people still with old phones that were 3G. In a couple of years, they are all going to stop working.
Yeah, and actually, I think it was last year, I think it was AT&T sunset their 2G network as well. And so they needed to get rid of that so that they could bring in the 5G networks as well. So there's a process that does have to happen there.
And when we talk about the early 5G networks, one of the things you were telling me about it, that initially it's really going to be for consumer usage. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so there's 4 billion people on the planet, and everyone wants to watch YouTube videos and videos on Facebook, and
And TikTok, don't forget TikTok.
I can't forget TikTok, I'm sorry. I'm not a TikTok user myself, but at any rate, given the number of people that need content delivered to them, the networks are focusing on getting fast download speeds. Now, they can do whatever they want. If you've got 100 megahertz of radio spectrum, you could use 50 for up and 50 for down, and you'd have a nice balanced network.
Right.
But that doesn't match how consumers are using their devices.
Right. We're watching far more than is going on.
Exactly.
Especially live.
Especially live. And so what we'll see with 5G is maybe we'll end up with a gigabit per second down, which is great because you can download huge files while you're on the go, and you can watch those cat videos on YouTube without any buffering. Awesome, that solves your problem in the stadium. But for us, when we start talking about how do we, what do we see on the upload side, we're seeing more reliable bandwidth, but we might only be talking about 30 megabits per second. So you might get a gigabit on the down and 30 megabits on the up, and that difference there, while it may be a more reliable 30 meg, is making, it keeps a lot of stuff relevant that we'll talk about in a second.
Cool, and then the other thing is let's talk about where we will see MMW networks, and that's in stadiums and venues, and talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so we've been doing a couple of proof of concepts with one of the cellular providers in a couple of different stadiums and venues around special events.
Can you tell us a stadium that has it?
Well,
we know the Super Bowl had it.
The Super Bowl had
Miami,
it,
right?
and then wherever the All-Star game took place. I apologize, I'm not a basketball fan. So the All-Star game had
Was it in Chicago? I think it was in Chicago.
Yeah, it was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so they had a in-stadium 5G network there. And
all 4 people with 5G phones got to take advantage of it.
Exactly, that's actually a true statement. There was like 6 5G devices in the stadium, and but at any rate, we'll start to see more and more stadiums and venues that do have that very dense, collection of people that need the bandwidth, rolling it out first, because it's a very good fit for millimeter wave. You're dealing with a contained area that doesn't travel very far and really plays to the strengths of 5G in the millimeter wave band in terms of being able to get.
And you can put transmitters, you can blanket the whole place. So
yeah.
If you're a real sports fan, you go to a lot of sporting events, then maybe you want to be an early adopter of a 5G phone. Other than that, probably not.
Yeah, well, it'll start to get there, but
and
it's
then
going to take time.
We mentioned it before. Who has a nationwide sub 6 5G network? T-Mobile should be pretty damn close by 2022.
Oh yeah, no, and I expect that will be,
especially with the merger.
Yeah, a nice big pink or whatever pink plus yellow map is, and it's going to definitely blanket the entire country with that sub 6, and we'll see a lot of benefits from that too, being able to do things like stream indoors more reliably. So if you're coming from going outside into a warehouse, all of a sudden the signal won't
You're not going to lose everything.
Drop off.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Cool. And then the next thing is let's talk about where we really think this is going. 2025, we're saying 5 years from now, we'll be past the tipping point. All 3 levels of 5G will really be out there a little bit. So we're going to see continued rollout of existing tech, and you think then we'll see network slicing?
Yeah, I think we'll see network slicing in broad distribution.
Right.
Obviously, with any major rollout, it's going to take time, and they're going to do it site by site and network by network and city by city and node by node, and we'll start to see more and more of that network slicing capability that'll be available.
By then, 5 years from now, the core should be...
Cores will all be 5G. We might start seeing the rollout of some 5G cores even as early as next year, or late this year. But it's going to once again be fairly contained to certain markets.
Far more cell sites for the millimeter wave.
Definitely. So these are sometimes called microcells, and so we might end up with microcells on top of every lamppost or every telephone pole in an area, and that would be one of the ways that they would saturate. The
I've heard the term, it creates
wave.
like a 5G mesh, right?
Yeah,
I've heard it said.
It does, and you've got a lot of them, and it sort of just covers an area, and we might even start to see, this isn't a bullet in this presentation, but we might even start to see some of the carriers like Verizon offer 5G to the home. So instead of getting a Verizon Fios connection, you would actually get a Verizon 5G router in your house, and you would connect up to the local 5G.
So that's 5G
node.
Wi-Fi, kind of replacing Wi-Fi or a new version. So your house would have one of these cells in it as opposed to having a cable come into your house from the pole.
Right, exactly, and that would be able to deliver more media services over that type of network.
So we're confidently predicting, but don't hold us to it because we're not involved in the actual happening, that we'll have a true nationwide 5G network 2025-ish.
Yeah, 2025-ish, I think we'll start to see saturation across the whole country, and really, at that point, everyone's going to start to feel the benefits of it.
Awesome. Now let's jump to where LiveU is, and I want to bring this in because the folks at LiveU aren't going to wait till 2025 to start doing this. That's why we have Chris here on the show. He's going to talk to us about the things that are really happening now, both in your labs and in some products that are coming soon, and in your roadmap in general. So we're kind of calling this a 3-year roadmap between now and that 2022 phase that you saw that we talked about before. So you've got the list, take it away.
Yeah, so one of the things I do want to highlight is we're obviously working very close with the carriers on a daily basis. We're working very closely with the modem manufacturers, and so we have a lot of sort of pre-release stuff, and we've got our finger on the pulse of exactly what's going on. So if any of this changes, we're ready to react. But we did this year at NAB New York and IBC in Amsterdam show sub-6 modems inside of our units, and we'll be showing more of that as we move forward for the T-Mobile network, for example, as we look at the 600 megahertz bands.
And now, this was one that kind of confused me because you see MMW millimeter wavelengths, so you think, okay, small waves. But you explained to me that the antennas are a challenge because those little waves need bigger antennas, and
lots
you
of
could
power.
you could get a big, strong antenna in a device like this, but trying to get that antenna in a device like this, well, Apple's already showed us that antennas aren't an easy thing to do.
No, antennas are incredibly difficult, and both on the tower side as well as on the device side, right? On the tower, they need those radios to be able to travel as far as they can, but on the device side, you might be talking about 7, 10, 12 miniature antennas in there, and one of the technologies that they use is something called beamforming. And it's actually where multiple antennas will work together electronically in order to strengthen its reception and transmit capability to a certain area of the device.
Okay.
And so it's a way that
almost like focusing.
Exactly. It's like it's almost like a prism, right? You take a whole lot of light in and you focus that energy and you end up with the equivalent of a laser. In this case here, they need to do that with millimeter wave in order to be able to just make that device connect and give you the throughput speeds that you actually need.
And even when they make these devices, there's a whole certification process involved, right?
Yeah, so there's a whole certification process. There's a lot of testing that goes into it. There's a lot of software that goes into this, right? I mean, we always think about towers and devices. Well, the software has to run all of that.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of effort in order to keep that software in tip-top shape, as well as dealing with, in development, we would say edge cases. What happens if this person drives into this black hole and then comes out of this tunnel and this happens? And so there's a lot of things that they need to work on there. I can tell you that the new Samsung Galaxy phones are a little thicker than the phones in the past have been, and that's specifically to afford extra space in the device for these millimeter wave antennas.
Cool. And then the last thing is there is actually a device that you like for 5G today that people can buy if they're obsessed with it.
Yeah, so the Netgear Nighthawk Netgear has a platform called the Nighthawk. It's a 5G device. It's
like one of those pucks, right?
Yeah,
that you plug into your laptop.
Exactly. So it's call it 4 inches by 4 inches by an inch thick. It's got the ability to have lots of antennas in there. It's got a battery that's able to power the 5G modem in order to connect. And we've tested this today, and you could use a solo unit, you could use one of our LU300s or LU600s, any one of those devices connected up to that Nighthawk either via USB, Ethernet, or Wi-Fi and get some of the benefits of that 5G
So let's
network.
bring this up full screen to go over the big kicker. The conclusion of this screen is LiveU 5G devices will roll out in high-end broadcast products first, because they're larger form factors, they have more power and more processing. So the Solo's going to be, it's going to be some time before we see that in the Solo, but in your LU600 and your other more broadcast, those are where we're going to first see that. And Rod, I see you have a question. When 6G comes out in the future, will all the towers have to be replaced? They won't, but they're basically going to put the 6G stuff where the 3G stuff used to be, right?
Yeah, or the 6G stuff where the 4G stuff used to be. And so the 6G standards are just getting talked about. Like any standard, it does take a long time to get those through and ratified because many standards are descriptive. They're not prescriptive. And so it takes time to digest that information and then build the technology and really, the 6G networks are going to be focused on who knows AI, who knows what.
So 5G sub-6 is coming. That'll be on the current towers. For the millimeter wave, we're going to need a whole lot of other micro whatever antennas and stuff like that. They're rebuilding their network, or they're keeping the old network up is basically what the carriers are having to do, which is also going to extend the length of this because we got to add that cord that's got to be rebuilt also. And
then you have to upgrade everybody's cell phones and everybody's coffee makers and everybody's vacuums, right? I mean, all of those devices along the way would need to be upgraded.
Cool. So if you stuck with us for 25 minutes, we appreciate it. We got a little into the weeds there, but I think it was important, good stuff. Now we get to the meat of this. LiveU cellular bonding, what we have today with the Solo versus the 5G that's coming in 2022. And we want to really stress to folks that current 4G and LTE networks have proven reliability, performance, and coverage. The early 5G stuff, if you go for it, you're beta testing to a little bit. This stuff is early rollout. There's going to be some bumps.
Definitely more bleeding edge than cutting edge.
Okay.
For sure. And the 4G networks are fabulous. I mean, they support just about everybody's device today. And so, in some places, in some situations, like in stadiums, you do end up with saturation events that you wouldn't have with 5G, but 4G is still a great tech.
And then 5G isn't a magic bullet. It's got some cool stuff, but that, like the question came, there'll be 6G after it. There's always going to be improvements in this wireless communication web that we've built all over our globe.
Definitely, and you look at that, it has some very strong points to the technology, like the throughput and capacity, but it has some weak points, like it doesn't travel as far with millimeter wave, and so it is a balancing act there. It's not like a one-size-fits-all.
So really, bonding will still be relevant even in a 5G world because you may need fewer modems, you'll get more bandwidth over what you use, or it's faster, but guys who are out in the field professionally who use your LiveU broadcast are always going to want more, faster, better, right?
Yeah, so I think the big note here is that, if there's 3 carriers or 4 carriers, whatever it is, that all have 5G networks, their coverage is not all going to be perfect. I mean, this is true today. And so, 5G will still, bonding in 5G will still be needed because you'll need to be able to balance between those carriers in order to continue to stream a reliable video signal.
And one of the things that's cool is look at this LiveU Solo. The LiveU Solo, the antennas plug in through USB jack. This is one of the modems. We're just plugging it in. So you're in a 5G world now. What do? Well, I'm hoping we'll have a LiveU 5G modem when everything's approved and right. So you could upgrade your LiveU Solo to a couple of 5G modems, or maybe it's one 5G and whatever. It doesn't matter because these are just the antenna that connects to the network. The magic of what this device doesn't change if you're connected by a different network.
Right, yeah. You could connect a satellite device that has IP satellite up to that, and it would be able to use that as an available signal to be able to broadcast back to either the internet or to your studio, as the case may be. And so it's a modular system. And so future 5G modems will 100% be compatible with some, if not all of the current LiveU products.
Right, and even the current LiveU products that have internal modems, you'd probably be able to send it back and replace it, upgrade, or something like that. So let's talk about the LiveU Solo, the product that we love, that we sell, that our customers love and adore. LiveU Solo is available in 2 flavors, HDMI, SD, and HDMI. And what does the LiveU Solo do? What's the magic? It uses cellular bonding to do what?
To transport video onto your favorite online video platform or social network.
You get reliability, you get redundancy, and you get the combination of the bandwidth. So what I like to say is if you have a LiveU Solo, you bring your bandwidth with you.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about not having the bandwidth. If you're doing live streaming and live production, this is insurance that no matter what, you'll have bandwidth, and it's assurance you can give to your customers that you'll always have bandwidth.
Exactly.
Now, what you guys came out that we really loved was the Solo Connect bundles. Now, one of the things that's tricky is while we're talking about modems, the truth of the world is the carriers have kind of don't talk about modems anymore. And if you
Not
have to
as
go to a
much.
Verizon store and get a modem, you guys are going to look at you like you're crazy. And same with AT&T and Sprint. It's nothing against it. It's just the modems are a technology we're using, but the cell phones have really become so good for the consumers that they, most of the guys I know travel with now will use their phone as a hotspot. They don't
tether,
even bother. Right. But this is what these kits get you is they get you a LiveU Solo, plus they get you 2 or 3 modems. It gets you the LRT,
right,
and it gets you a unlimited package of bandwidth, which is extra that you pay monthly. But I've done this on other shows and gone into it. If you're going to be streaming 4 or 5 times a week, 4 or 5 times a month, it's coming to $50 a stream.
right.
If you can't build that into your package when you get to be able to tell your customer, no matter what, the bandwidth comes with me, don't worry about what you have on. That you could know that you don't have to worry that you set up on some basketball court at a high school and they tell you they have all the bandwidth in the world, and then you find out, yeah, but we set up a firewall for YouTube so you can't get to
Right,
YouTube,
yeah.
For your show when you're wired in. So we really, if you're a professional streamer, if you look to stream things on a regular basis, a church, what have you, definitely LiveU Solo is the product to get. Now, there's a lot of people up there who are higher end people who I think may have watched this show because of the content. So let's talk to them. Let's say you had an older LU200 or LU500. LiveU's got an upgrade program going. And I think I want to stress that a little bit before I kick it over. We're not going to go into details on this, but you can turn in an LU200 or 500 or 300 or 600. Which means you can grow your business down the road. And more than that, it kind of means that LiveU products really are future-proof. You heard what we're talking about. So you can rest assured if you buy any LiveU product today, when the 5G miracle happens and these great LiveU 5G products available, you guys are going to make it available at a special price,
Of course,
for your existing users. And I think that's really great because since we've been selling LiveU, you've been offering trade-in programs.
Yeah, trade-in programs and upgrade paths are important for everybody, right? I mean, you lease a car, and at the end of the lease, you go in and you get a new car, and there's a certain benefit to that, and so we have the same thing through our upgrade programs as well. Right now, the older units, the 200 and the 500 are both H.264 based,
right,
versus the 300 and 600 are HEVC based, and so you get much lower bandwidth at the same video quality or much higher video quality at the same bandwidth.
Well, that's what I like to talk about. If you're paying for data, you get twice as much time with the same.
Exactly.
And so this is just explaining how things have gone better. But we want to stress, if you've got a 200 or 500 you're interested in trading it up, you can call a LiveU reseller, you can call LiveU directly, you can call Videoguys. Anyone who's a LiveU reseller or LiveU will be willing to help you. Depending on what you want to give up and what you want to get, it changes. So it's a whole matrix. So give us a call if you're interested in that because it's really exciting stuff. So Chris, I want to thank you. I think this is a really great show. As usual, when I have a guest, I go over the 30 minutes because I just can't stop talking, and I apologize for that. So I want to go in a little bit on what we have in future shows coming up. March 3rd, we're back to Ask the Video Guys. Once again, I want to remind you that the show is now called Videoguys Live, and it's now Tuesdays at 3 p.m. And then on the 10th, Wirecast bundles with Wirecast gear, PTX optics cameras, XT's controllers, better all working together. And once again, if you're out in a remote spot, you can add a LiveU Solo, and now you don't have to worry if you have high-speed connectivity or not. So, Chris, great show. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I hope we answered some of your questions about 5G, where the future is, why LiveU cellular bonding is still going to be an important thing going forward. So, folks, thanks a lot. Tuesdays, 3 p.m., tune in. Watch us on YouTube. Watch us on Facebook Live. Watch us on our own website. And guys, like us, give us the social media love and help us spread the word. I think you'll see that we're doing some good stuff here, and we want you to learn more about the products we sell. Chris, next time you're on Long Island, let's meet up and have a drink.
You bet.
Catch you later, buddy. Thanks. Peace.
Videoguys is available Monday through Friday. Give us a call at 1-800-323-2325. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay connected with all of our updates. And you can like us on Facebook. Keep an eye out for our live videos, and don't forget to